My name is Yosef David Rothbart. We're holding DAF Zayin Amabez at the bottom. It says Tana Rabbanan. It says Ein Bodkim Lola or Hacham V'Lola or Halavana. It says we don't check on the bottom. Is that where we are?
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but the last line in Zayin. Tana Rabbanan Ein Bodkim Lola or Ein Bodkim Lola or Hacham V'Lola or Halavana V'Lola or Havuka. When you check the chametz, you can't check using the sunlight, not moonlight, and not a torch. Elala or hanir, but only a candle. Why b'mnesha or hanir yafala bedika? And the Gemara will explain that the why it is so, but the Gemara says that the candlelight is better for checking. The afal pishein raya l'davar, even though we don't have a proof, zeicher l'davar, there's a way to remember this. Shenemar shivas yamim, the pasuk tells us shivas yamim sor la yimsa b'vatechem. You can't find chametz 7 days for 7 days in your house. V'omer, and it says another pasuk vayichapish begadol by Binyamin when they searched the sack. So it started with the eldest brother. V'omer ba'esei yichapish, and he uses the word chipesh. At that time I will search Es Yerushalayim b'neiros. Hashem says when he was searching Yerushalayim, he was going to use neiros. V'omer ner Hashem nishmas Adam, and it says that the flame of Hashem is the nisham, is the soul of man. Chofesh kol chadrei batim, and you should check in all the hidden parts of the soul. So you see that what is used to check is a candle as opposed to any other form of light. So therefore you see that the best thing to use for checking is candlelight. And so that's why by chametz, when we check for chametz using candlelight. So the Gemara goes and says, we said you can't use sunlight. What type of sunlight are we speaking about? If we're saying that you're going to search your chatzar, and that's where the sun is obviously outside, so you're searching your courtyard. Ha'amar Rava already said, chatzar eina tzricha bedika, courtyard or any place outside, one does not have to check. Mnesha orvim mitzuyim sham, because the ravens are there and the birds go and eat the crumbs anyway, so there's not going to be any chametz around, and the only places that it's possible that for chametz to be found there, do you have to check. So therefore the courtyard doesn't have to be checked. Elabach Sadra, so it must be what we're speaking about is like I guess it's a gazebo thing. It has a roof without any walls. So there also, so sunlight easily gets through. So Hamar Rava already told us Rava already told us you could use the sunlight in such a structure. So how could you? So it can't be when the Mishnah says use a candlelight as opposed to sunlight. It's speaking about such a structure. Like Tzricha, the Gemara explains, what is this referring to? La aruba de becheder. So you have a room with a skylight. So what happens is the sunlight goes through, and the Gemara explains exactly where you're checking. Udehecha, where are you going to check? Ila bahade adura. If you're going to check directly opposite, meaning if the sunlight is, so the way it goes, you have the window, the skylight, so the sunlight goes in. So where the sunlight hits directly, that you're allowed to use the Hainu Achzadra. That's the same exact case of Achzadra, because just like in the open, just where the roof, without walls, the sunlight goes directly in, and there we're told you're allowed to check using sunlight. So too also, if you have a skylight and the sunlight goes directly in, where the sunlight hits, you're also allowed to check, because those are comparable cases. So what does it mean that you can't check from the sunlight? Elalit stadim. So it means like this: where the sunlight hits directly, you're allowed to use the sunlight. But any place outside where the sunlight hits directly, then you cannot use sunlight to check. So at the so the Gemara comes out when you can't use sunlight if the sunlight doesn't hit the place directly. But if the
sunlight or larbasa, it's nighttime.
So that the Gemara discussed what or meant. Why did it use that language? It's a euphemism for it's a saginar.
You're saying it's nighttime. It's not shaykh the sun.
Oh, that's it. I'm sorry.
That's why we talk about Cham in the first place.
Yes.
Where's the sunlight coming in if it's night?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, I hear. No, so it will be speaking about. Let's say it will make differences. Let's say someone's leaving early. You could check during the day, things like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a good. Right. Yeah, that's yeah. Uvavukalo, the Gemara said another thing you can't use to check is a torch. V'hamar Rava ma'dichsiv. What's the sort? V'hamar Rava, but Rava says that we're going to ask also. The torch seems like a better way to check than using a simple candle. The Gemara says V'hamar Rava ma'dichsiv v'noga ka'or tiya karanim imyadolo v'sam chavyan uzu. That I think when Mashiach comes in Olam Haba, that the light that the shine of the righteous people's faces will be a light, will be like a light which is given, which are like rays of light given over from Hashem, but it won't be entire. But some of the light will be retained from Hashem, and so it won't be in its full strength. Meaning, some of the strength will be, some of the strength of the light will be kept by Hashem. So the Gemara says, "L'mat tzadikim dom." The Gemara explains that pasuk, "L'mat tzadikim domim b'fnei hashchina kener b'fnei havuka." That the shine of the tzadikim when Mashiach comes, or in Olam Haba, will be similar, will be comparable in front of the Shechina, in front of Hashem's presence, like a candle in front of a torch. So you see that although a candle shines, it doesn't shine as well as a torch. It doesn't give as much light as a torch. So therefore, it would seem a better way to check would be using a torch, since it provides more light. V'amar Rava, and another source for this, avuka lahavdala mitzvah min amufka. We use a torch. By Havdalah, that's the best way to use Havdalah. Since by Havdalah we're thanking Hashem for the light that He provides us, so we use a something that provides more light. So you see, again, a torch provides more light than a candle. So why does it say that a candle could be used as opposed to a torch?
Why would they even bother? I mean, it's just common sense that a torch is brighter. I mean, why do they have to go into all these psukim to prove that a torch is brighter? It seems a little counterintuitive,
yeah.
But it's common sense that a torch.
No, it's true, but we find you're right. No, it seems to be that's the way the Gemara. We find, let's say, it has another pasuk that bubbles north. It has many. Every time when we could, the Gemara tries to bring a source from a pasuk. It's from the Torah, so it's always
especially the second one. Because the second one, they're trying to show you that we use a torch for another mitzvah, right? So why not use it for this mitzvah?
I think a candle is better. I think for searching.
Yeah, a candle is better for searching. That's what the
so the Gemara will explain that. I'm sure it's
the Vuka is stronger than.
Because the glare.
Go ahead.
So Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak Zeh Yachal Achnisa. No, in truth, when it comes to searching, although the candle doesn't provide as much light, Yachal Achnisa l'cherem tzdakim. A candle could get into smaller places, into holes, into crevices. V'zeh eina, but you can't really stick a torch in a small hole.
Or down the house.
Right. V'zeh eina Yachal Achnisa l'cherem tzdakim. This you can't put into holes and crevices. Rav Zvid Amar Zeh Oru Lefanav Zeh Oru Le'acharav. This it literally means this light is in front of it, meaning the candle's light is in front and the torch is behind it. I think what it means is that when you have a torch, so the light is so big, the light is so great by the torch that you won't be able to notice like the small things because your eyes will be attracted to blinded by the light.
There you go.
Diffused light as opposed to directional light.
So that's
that's what it's saying, and that's the reason.
That's okay. Very good. Rav Papa Amar high bias for high bias by a candle. Even if we're dealing with not going into holes, but still with a candle, a person's much more confident that the house will remain standing after he finishes checking. But by a torch, he's afraid, so therefore he won't be able to concentrate on the checking. Ravina Amar high mashach nahira v'high miktach ketufe. Apparently, by the candle's light is more steady, as opposed to a torch's light. It jumps around, it flickers. So therefore, a torch is not as good for checking as a candle. So the Gemara is now going to continue. The Gemara says the Mishnah said on DAF you have to check any place that you bring chametz in, and the Gemara could have said, the Mishnah could have just said a place where you bring chametz in. The Gemara asks, what's every place that you bring chametz in? What's called that every place coming to include? Kol makam la'asuye mai. What's it coming to include when it says every place? La'asuye hadetanan. Hadetanu rabbanon. Chayre beis elyon is coming to include chayre beis elyon v'tachtonim. That any let's say you have a high house or a very low house, so you don't put, so therefore, and you have a hole in a high part or a very low part, so there you're not going to put chametz in, so therefore you don't have to check there, because you're not going to put chametz in anyway, since it's not such an accessible place. V'gag hayitzia, nagaga yitzia, there's a slanted roof. I think a yitzia is like a small structure attached to the house, but it had a slanted roof, so you can't really put anything on the roof, it would roll off. v'gag hamigdal, and a gag hamigdal, which is a higher roof, so you don't really have access to v'refes bakar, and where they keep like a farm where they keep the cows, because that will be eaten. V'lulim, where they keep the chickens, again that the chickens will eat it. Umitevin, umatvin, where they store a silo where they store grain. That will also, just no one brings chametz into such a place. V'otzros yayin, v'otzros shemen, in a storage place for wine or oil, also ain't srichim bedika, because there people don't bring any chametz into them. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel adds another case, Mita hachalekes besoch habayis umafsekes tzricha bedika. He says, let's say you have a bed, so a bed that's just to split up the house. Rashi understands that underneath the bed, you would have to check, according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, because there's people put chametz. V'raminu, now the Gemara is going to analyze each of the cases. V'raminu, the Gemara has a contradiction. Chor shebein adam lechaveru zeh bodek ad makam sheyadu magas v'zeh bodek ad makam sheyadu magas. If you have a hole between houses, each one has to check as far as their hand could reach, because as far as their hand could reach, we assume that if they put chametz, it will only go so far. V'ashar mevatel b'libo, and if let's say the chametz rolled, still you're mevatel it and you nullify it in your heart. You nullify it. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Mita hacholekes betoch habayis ve'etzam vadim sezurin tachtef. You have a bed also that's splitting up the house, and you have wood and stones underneath it. Eina tzricha bedika. There you don't have to check. So we have the Gemara is going to ask two questions. Kasha mita. In the first Brisa, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says you do have to check underneath the bed, and the second Brisa says you don't have to check underneath the bed that splits up a house. Kashi Aharon Aharon. In the first mission, we also have a question regarding the holes. In the first mission, it says you don't have to check holes. In the second mission, it says you do have to check the holes. So the Gemara is going to Aharon Aharon lo Kashi. The Gemara answers that regarding the holes, it's not a question. Habi loy v'tatoi. In the first mission, it's discussing higher holes and lower holes, which it's harder to access. V'b'mitzah, in the second brisa, which says that you have to check the holes, that's speaking about holes that are on level that it's easy to use. And mita lo kasha, and a mita, a bed that separates the room, that's also not difficult to understand. In the first brisa, which says you have to check underneath the bed, we're discussing a bed that's higher off the ground. Since it's higher off the ground, it's easier to store things there, so people will store things, and chametz will end up there as well. But in the second brisa, we're discussing the case where it's a lower bed, and people won't store things underneath the lower bed since it's harder to access, so therefore chametz won't get there, and one does not have to check there. The Gemara said, the Mishnah said that where you store wine, one does not have to check. The Gemara is going to ask on that now. Are you going to tell me that where you store wine, it doesn't need bedika? V'hatanya, but we learned in a brisa, otzros yain tzarich bedika, otzros shemen ain't tzarich bedika. But we do learn that a storage place for wine needs to be checked, but only oil, a storage where you store oil, does not need to be checked. So we have a contradiction. Does wine need to be checked or not? The Gemara says, hacha b'mayaskinan b'mistapik. We're in the brisa, which says that you have to check a storage place for wine. We're discussing a case where one goes in the middle of the meal and he replenishes the wine that's as needed during the meal. In the first brisa, where it says you don't have to check, that's not where you go during the meal for wine. In the second brisa, which says you do have to check, that's where you go for the wine during the meal. Where the concern is that when you go for wine, since you're in the middle of a meal, you're going to bring bread with you that you're eating, and the chametz will end up there. So Gemara asks, Ihachi, if that's true, if we're discussing storage houses that you replenish what's needed at the meal, shemen nami. So shemen also, where storehouses of oil, you should also need to check. So Gemara says, no, shemen yesh keva le'achila yayin and keva le'shtia. A person knows at the beginning of the meal how much oil is going to be needed for the meal. He knows how many people there are eating with him, and therefore he could bring enough oil. Oil's for eating. But for drinking, no one's sure how much other people will drink, so therefore the concern is only by wine that one will replenish it during the meal.
A few pages back, didn't you learn already that if you go into the cellar with the wine, you only have to check The first row.
Right. So that's the Gemara is going to discuss that on Amud Beis. But right, when it will say checking the wine cellar, right, it would be only the place where you would bring chametz in. Right. No. Right. Tani Reb Chia. Reb Chia says, "Asu otzros shecher bebavo keotzros yayin be'eretz Yisrael." So Reb Chia says, when in Bavel their main drink was beer as opposed to wine, so a beer cellar is the same status of a wine cellar.
Yeah.
Yes, there must have another way of making beer. I don't know. It's a great
Date beer.
Right.
Date beer, yeah.
The Gemara says dates, which isn't common.
Right. Stop it. A fish pantry also does not need to be checked. The Gemara says, we have a contradiction. Another place it says you do have to check for fish. By bigger fish, you know how much fish you're going to need at the beginning of the meal, so therefore a fish pantry doesn't need to be checked. But smaller fish, I would guess a person doesn't know, so therefore he would have to, so there you would have to check. Again, the concern is that during the meal you will go in to bring more.
Go fishing then.
What?
You would go fishing then.
You go, exactly. Right. Amar Rabbi bar Rav Huna, another thing that you would have to check, a pantry for salt and a pantry for wax. Also, you would need to check, because again, during the meal you would go in and get salt and candles, so therefore you would have to check these places. Amar Rav Papa, BAYT Sivi, a storehouse, a pantry for wood, BAYT Tamri, or for dates, Tzarech B'dika, they as well need to be checked. Again, the same concern. Tana, Ein Mechayiv Oisai. Now the Gemara is going to go through a discussion whether we have to check if there's a hole in the house. Does one have to check there or not? We mentioned earlier, now the Gemara is going to bring a different opinion. Tana, ein mechayven oisei lahaknas yadei lecharim l'sadakim libda mipnei hasakana. A person's not obligated to stick his hand and to move a check around the hole in a house whether to see there's chametz there because it's dangerous. My sakana. What's the danger? If you think the danger is because there's a scorpion, how did he use the hole in the first place? Why wasn't he concerned when he first put the chametz in, or he first put anything in the hole of scorpions? So how did it work? Lo tzricha, the Gemara says the nafal. No, actually, where the hole was originally, I guess the wall where the hole was, it fell down. So before before that wall or where the hole was fell down, there were no scorpions. So he was able to put things in. But now that the wall fell, so scorpions started to come. And now it's a danger, so therefore he doesn't have to check. The Gemara says, but wait one second. If it fell, so why are you checking it all? We have a Mishnah about nan chametz shenafel lamapolas. If you have chametz with a wall fell on it, hareyu kemivur, you don't have to check it as if it's burnt. So the Gemara says, no, Hassam, there's a difference. The Mishnah there is discussing she'ein hakelav yachal lechapesh, that a dog is not able to smell it out. Rashi says a dog can smell 3 tfachim, so 3 hand breaths. But here the dog is able to smell it out and search it out, and therefore you would have to check afterwards. So Tosfos over here asks the question, it sounds that if a structure would fall out where you knew there's chametz is there, you would have to check. So what happened to sakana in that place? What happened to why? But there's a danger there as well. So Tosfos says, in our case, we're discussing a situation where you don't know for sure there chametz is, but throughout the year you use that, so there may be chametz. But if you know certainly that there's chametz, then sakana, since it's not 100%, it's not a certain danger, then you won't. Then the Chacham said, "No, don't check."
Oh, so the reason why the dog is because the dog might find it during Pesach and take and find the chametz and bring it back into your house. That's
right.
Why I thought he couldn't find it for you. You have to go looking for it anyways.
Right.
So basically, you do the badika, bring the dog with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Send him out there, and then if he doesn't find it, you're good.
So the Gemara asks, why are we concerned about danger at all? We have this idea that someone who's doing a mitzvah, and that's why some people, when someone's going on a trip, they give them $1 to give to tzedakah, because we have a concept that people who are doing on their way to do a mitzvah, they don't get damaged anyways. So what are we concerned about? Let him check. He's doing a mitzvah, and either way he will be okay.
You know that, and I know that. The scorpion doesn't.
So see, the Gemara will get to that. But Amar of Ashi Shema Taiva Loimachet, the Gemara says, no, maybe he'll have lost a needle or something that's important to him throughout the year. Vasi Layuni Bebasra, once you know how the idea, anytime you're searching for chametz, not only do you find chametz, you find every single thing that you're missing the entire year. So here also the person knows that I lost this thing, let me look for it as well. So he'll be looking for chametz and the needle, and something that's important to him. So the Gemara says, V'gai gavna lav mitzvahs, this is not a mitzvah, v'hatanya. We learned in a brisa, Omer if I promise a certain amount of money to tzedakah on condition that the son becomes healthy, or will merit the world to come, a person who does such a thing, he's totally righteous. So to here, when someone's looking for the needle and chametz at the same time, that's comparable to someone who's giving tzedakah for two reasons. So that's someone who's purely righteous. That means he's doing a mitzvah. The Gemara says no. What we're concerned about, you're right, but we're concerned about over here is dilma basar de badakot asi liyuni basri. So he checked the place. He finished checking. So he's no longer involved in checking chametz. But he figures once I'm searching the hole anyways. Let me continue to look for the needle. That's why.
Why are we worried about the scorpion then? It's also a mitzvah. He's looking for the chametz.
No, but after he finishes the chametz, now we're going to look for
the hole. He's putting his hand into the hole. He's
that's the Gemara's question.
He won't get bitten by the Avraham.
Right, so that's the Gemara's question. The Gemara says over here, we're concerned that after you finish the mitzvah, then you'll continue to look around in that hole. And no, you're no longer involved with the chametz.
For a non-mitzvah reason.
So you're not protected.
So you're no longer protected, right?
This might be where the expression needle from a haystack came from?
I don't know.
Looking for a needle in a haystack?
Right. These are all I hear. Okay.
You're looking for chametz.
But why they pick a needle? Why a needle?
Because it's very
so small.
The expression
for the expression?
Chametz in a haystack.
Right. Tosis over here asks a question. He says, we know there's a well-known Mishnah in Avos. It says, Al tiyu kavadim hameshamshin esarav al manas lekabel pras. Don't be like those people. Don't be like a servant who serves their master just to get reward, just to get paid, just to get a paycheck. So yes, over here, seemingly it's the same. Here, someone is serving Hashem just to. So he says, so he'll get olam haba, so his child will be well. So why is he over here? He called it tzaddik gomer, and yet the Mishnah of us tells you don't serve Hashem like that. So Tosfos over here says that the Mishnah in Avos is discussing a case where the person, if he doesn't get what he wants, would regret ever doing that mitzvah. So if you to serve Hashem in such a way that the only reason why you're serving Hashem is just to get reward, and if you don't get the reward, you would regret having spent that time serving Hashem. That's no good. But to have two reasons, you want to serve Hashem, and also you want to get the mitzvah. You have your own personal reason, but if the own personal reasons don't come true, still you happy that you did the mitzvah. That's what the Gemara says is tzaddik, right? Exactly, and it could be. I think it's more that the main purpose is for the mitzvah, and this is also like a good right. So now that was one answer. The first answer was we're concerned that after you finish checking, after you're finished being involved in the mitzvah, now you will continue to search, and at that point, that's where it's dangerous. The Gemara is going to give now a different answer. Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak, it's no longer a concern about scorpions, a totally different concern. Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Mishum Sakanas Hanachar. We're concerned about non-Jews. Uplimo, and it's following the opinion of Plimo. Who's Plimo? Detanya. Chor shebein Yehudi la'armoi boidek ad makam shiyadim agas v'ashar mevatlo belibo. If let's say someone shares a house with a non-Jew, and they have a hole in between them, so he should check, or a wall, his courtyard, a non-Jew's courtyard, he should check until his hand could reach. But beyond that, he should no longer check. Plimo Omar, but Plimo argues and says, Kol atzmo inu bodek mibnei sakana. He shouldn't check at all. It's too dangerous to check there. Why is it too dangerous? My sakana. What's the danger? Ine masakanas kshafim. If we're concerned about magic, that the non-Jew will use magic against him, sorcery, ki yishtamish hechi yishtamish. So again, the question: so how do you originally use it? If he was concerned about sorcery, then he shouldn't have put anything in the first place there. So you see, it's not a concern. The Gemara says no. Hasam ki yishtamish yimama v'nahira. When he originally put things there, he put things there during the day when it was light, below masik, and a person isn't in that mindset when it's light outside to use magic. Hachalelia v'shragahu, but here where it's dark at night and he's using a candle, masik adaiti, so then he thinks about magic. You can imagine what the incantations were, that you sit in a circle with candles all around you in a dark room with that star in the middle.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, so once you see that all these things coming with the pentagram in the middle, so when you're in such a situation, the guy sees, and the non-Jew sees the darkness with a candle, he gets in that mindset, so that's where we're concerned about sorcery.
It's all about Marasayan, what the goy is going to think the Jews do.
No, Kishuv doesn't work at night, in the day?
The Gemara seems to say that it's just not his mindset then. Lo masik adaiti. He's not in the...
If in his mind he's casting a spell, it's going to last day and night. So
No, but he won't cast the spell. He'll cast the spell when he sees the Jew reaching in, but only if it's at night when he's in that mindset.
Archwell explains it as what he's going to be accused of.
Yeah, the guy is going to accuse the Jew of trying to do witchcraft against him, but in the daytime he wouldn't do the witchcraft.
A boy sees a Jew with a candle at night. It looks like the Jews doing witchcraft.
I see. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So that's what the way Archwell
I don't know.
explains.
You could be right too. I'm just saying that's the way the Archwell is.
Oh, okay.
Marasayan.
I tell you, I was coming. Rashi says v'lav hadaiti dinachri losum el liba el. Oh, alilazu. You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry.
The goy is going to
scratch the candle. Scratch anything. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. What the goy is going to think the Jews doing.
The guy is thinking that the Jews doing.
Right.
Yeah.
When it says he searches as far as his hand can reach, how can he search beyond as far as his hand can reach?
Maybe go to the other side.
Go to the goy side.
Right.
That's a danger too.
It's not using magic wand.
But but it seems like the concern is only apparently what the guy will think. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay.
Which doesn't agree.
V'amar Rabbi Lazar, the Gemara asks, just like it asked in the first sentence, V'amar Rabbi Lazar, shluchei mitzvah eina nizakim, but someone who's involved in a mitzvah won't get damaged. Heicha d'shchicha hezeka shiny, but where it's more common, where danger is more commonly found, then it's different. Shenemar, like we have, Pasuk tells us by Shmuel Anavi was told by Hashem while Shaul was still in reign, go and appoint and anoint David HaMelech as king. So Shmuel said, what am I going to do? I'm going to go. Shaul's going to find out what I'm doing, and when he does that, he's going to kill me. It's Morid B'Malchus. So how could I do such a thing? How could I put my life in danger? And Hashem accepted that, and He said, "You're right. Pretend that you're bringing a carbon. Set up a whole ploy." So you see that when even Shmuel, who was told by Hashem to go directly, when there's a danger, you should then you don't have this promise of shluchei mitzvah. Someone who's involved in mitzvah won't get damaged. Shenemar vayomer Shmuel eich elech. How will I go? V'shama Shaul v'hargeni. So Hashem, how will I go? And Shaul will hear and he'll kill me. Vayomer Hashem. And Hashem responded, Eglas bakar tikach b'yadcha. Pretend that you're taking a carbon. It'll be a whole ploy.
Hashem gave him a cover.
Right.
Yeah.
Bo minei mirav. Another new question. Also involved in the sugya of shluchei mitzvahs ein nizakim. Bo minei mirav. Hani b'nei beirav the diary bebaga. Those students who living in like open fields, I guess where more animals are found. Mahu lemeise kadma v'chashucha. Could they go early morning when there's no one around, or late at night lebeirav to the base measures to the Rebbe's house? Is that the concern over there? Is because Rashi says mazikin are around. So since no one's around, so that's when mazikin come. Could a person walk through the fields to go to the shul, to go to the base measures, to go to the Rebbe's house? Amar lehu, neisi alai. So we responded, neisi alai ve'al tavari. It's on me. Meaning, you don't have to be concerned because you're involved in a mitzvah, so don't be concerned. Nothing's going to happen. Nasal mai. Could they go back? after they finish learning, could they now return home, or are they stuck there the whole day, the whole night?
Because now they're not on their way to a mitzvah.
Right. They have no...
They're on their way home from a mitzvah.
Right, so it could be that promise ends, it's only on their way. Amar Lahu lo yadan, I choose, I don't know. Itmar, Amar Rebbe Lazar shluchei mitzvah, so we have a Amar Rebbe Lazar shluchei mitzvahs einan nizakim, lo bahalichasim, lo bachazirasam. A shluchei mitzvah, someone who went...
I mean, that's the whole concept in Hatzalah. If you aren't allowed to return, no one's going to go in the first place, so it has to be part of the...
But when you go with your wife to the hospital,
No.
you got to stay there. What do you mean no? When you take your wife to the hospital on Shabbos, she got to stay there.
No.
Your family's there. If you brought your wife
Well,
with
you should be allowed to come back.
no, because your wife is still at the hospital. If your wife is allowed to go back, I mean, whether you're allowed to go back with her.
I'm just saying.
You're not going to not
Sometimes things are only one way. I'm trying to say.
It's not
Wife is in a telecall.
It's a whole different answer. Nothing... Right. So the Gemara says, Kiman, where does it come from that you will be protected either way? Ki hatanya Tana Detani Isi ben Yehudi Amr. Isi ben Yehuda says about Klape Sha'amra Torah, regarding what the Torah says, V'lo Yachmed Ishes Artzecha, that a person won't covet your land when you go up for the 3 times a year to the Gimel Regalim. You don't have to be concerned that armies will come or you will be robbed by neighbors, because Hashem has a promise that no one will covet you, no one will desire your land. Milamed, and Tosfos explains, we learn it from the extra word s, shetei parascha roa ba'af afar, that your cow could graze in the meadow. Ve'in chayim azikasa. It's not only you and your land, but also a wild animal won't damage a cow that's grazing in the field. Tarnagolscha menakeres ba'ashba, the chicken could eat in the garbage. Vein chulda mazikasa, and a weasel won't attack it. V'alo dvarim kal v'chomer, so that's the price. V'alo dvarim kal v'chomer, and we can learn out a kal v'chomer ma elu shedarkan lozuk eina nizaken, those which their nature is to get damaged. They don't get damaged. I mean, a chicken, it's b'nei adam shein darkan lozak alachas v'kama, a man whose nature is not to get damaged because they have a mazel. They have every person has a malach that's protecting them, so certainly they won't get damaged. If a chicken won't get damaged, certainly man himself won't get damaged. Alachas kama v'kama. So the Gemara says, "Ainli alicha." The Brisa continues, "Ainli bahalicha." That's only going to the Gimel Regalim. B'chazar minayin. How do I know when they come home? Talmud Lomar. The pasuk tells us, "Upanisa baboker," and you'll get ready. You'll go up to go in the morning. V'halachta Allahu alacha, and you'll go back to your tents. Milamed, from the fact that it says your tents, shetelech v'timsa alecha. It says you have a place to go back to. Your tents won't be destroyed. Your houses won't be broken into. B'shalom. So the Gemara says, so now that I have the second pasuk that teaches me that on the return, a person's not going to be damaged, so why do I need a pasuk telling me on my way there to a mitzvah that I won't be damaged? And now that I learned that when I return from a mitzvah I won't be damaged, what do I need a source telling me on my way there that I won't be damaged? You're right, we don't need a source telling me on the way there that I won't be damaged. It's coming to teach me an entirely new halacha. The Amar of Ami, Kol Adam Sheyesh Lo Karka Olo L'Regel, only someone who owns property goes up 3 times a year. Visha Ein Lo Karka Ein Lo L'Regel, but someone who doesn't own any property, he does not go up 3 times a year. And the Maharsha explains, because really the whole part of the mitzvah of being going up 3 times a year is you take the mitzvahs of the land, Meiser Sheni, and you bring them up to Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim, and you're misameach there with these mitzvahs. So only someone who owns land could fulfill the mitzvahs and bring.
It's like a farming thing, right?
Yeah, I mean all the mitzvahs that are involved in land and farming, right? Yeah. So that's brought to Yerushalayim. So only someone who's land has that ability. So therefore, it only pertains to such a person. Amarav. Once we're discussing Oler Regam, the Gemara is going to bring two short ideas about Oler Regam. Then we're going to go back to Psachim. Amarav Avin Barav Ada Amarav Yitzchak Mibna Mein Peres Ginosar Yerushalayim. Why were Peres Ginosar in Yerushalayim? Peres Ginosar were this very sweet fruit. There's a Gemara in Eruvin that says that an Amora used to go with his students, and basically he would eat 1,000 of these fruits at once, just to appreciate how sweet they are and what Eretz Yisrael has They're tremendously sweet fruit. Kadesh lo ye'ole regal omrim el male lo alinu el lechel peres ginosar b'Yerushalayim dayinu. The reason why there weren't these extremely sweet fruit is because if someone will go and say, it was worth the entire trip because I got to taste these fruit. And by saying that, he's basically saying that I went for the fruit as opposed to going for the mitzvah. Dayenu nimsas aliyah shelo lishma. It will be shelo lishma. Ki yotze ba. Similarly, we find Amar Rav Dustoi Bar Yanai memna'in chametz Tveria b'Yerushalayim. Why aren't chametz Tveria also in Yerushalayim? The same reason. Kadesh lo ye'ole regalim oimrim. So the people who go up to make this pilgrimage, so the people won't say if it was only to bathe in the chametz Tveria, that itself, that was enough. Dayenu. V'nimtzas again, aliyah shelo lishma, and will come out it's aliyah shelo lishma.
I just figured out why.
Yeah, but if you could get lishma straight, no.
I just figured out why Jerusalem doesn't have a beach. Because that's the whole thing. Jerusalem has no beach. There's no beach. We still go.
So the Gemara is now going to explain the next.
It's good.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The Gemara is going to now explain the next part of the. That's why the coastal flow. Right. Okay. The next part of the Mishnah said Beishuras b'Marte. If you have 2 rows in the cellar, the Gemara says, what if we follow the whole Mishnah? It just doesn't add up. It just seems like. The Mishnah seems very fragmented. It's missing something. There's no reason why. There's no connection between one part of the next. Martef mandakar shmei. Who mentioned it? Hechi kamar. Hachi kamar. This is what it means to say. Kol makam she machnisim by chametz ein tzarich v'dika. Any place, the Mishnah really means to tell you this. Any place you don't bring in chametz throughout the year, it doesn't need to be checked. V'otzos yayin, v'otzos shemen nami. And a storage house for wine and oil also don't have to be checked. But we have a statement saying that 2 rows have to be checked when in a cellar. When was the statement said that 2 rows have to be checked? That's only makom shemachnisim bo chametz umistapik. That's only a place that chametz is brought in, and because people go buy a meal to replenish what they're missing in the meal. Then now we had the last part of the Mishnah. We had a very cryptic machlokus between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. They said each one said 2 rows have to be checked, and it was just a disagreement. What were the 2 rows? Beis Shammai said 2 rows al kol panei martef and the whole cellar, and Beis Hillel said no, the 2 outside upper rows. So what does this all mean? The Gemara will explain both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, starting with Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai omrim shtei shuras. Amar Rav Yehuda shtei shuras amar. These 2 rows which were said mina aretz vad shmei akar. So it means like this. Imagine if you have like a cellar. So it's like 5 rows across and 5 rows up. So Beis Shammai's opinion is, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that the first 2 rows, so 2 rows going up 5 have to be checked, and the last 3 don't have to be checked.
That's Rabbi Yehuda.
I'm sorry, Rabbi Yehuda says that. Rabbi Yochanan says, Omer shura achas kimin gam. Rabbi Yochanan says, he argues and says, no, 2 rows mean kimin gam, which means you would have to check row 5 and the upper row 1. A gam is like our chaf sofis. That would be how you would check here as well. So a top and one, and the first row and top, first row and the first column also. Tanya Kavasi de Rabbi Yehuda, we have a brisa supporting Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Tanya Kavasi de Rabbi Yochanan, we have a brisa supporting Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Tanya Kavasi de Rabbi Yehuda, Beis Shammai omrim shtei shuras al pinei kol martef. Shtei shuras throughout by the wholesaler. What does that mean? Shtei shuras sha'amru, and these 2 rows which I said, or that were said, mina aretz vad shmei kora, from the bottom, which means all the way to the top. So that would mean 2 rows from the 2 columns from the bottom all the way up. That would mean row 1 and 2 out of 5. Column 1 and 2 out of 5. Tanya Kavasi de Rabbi Yochanan, we have a brisa supporting Rabbi Yochanan's opinion, who said it was the top row and the first column. Shtei shuras al pinei kol martef. When it says shtei shuras throughout, but on the cellar, chitzona roa esa pesach, the outside one which sees the opening to the cellar, that would mean the first column, because the first column sees the opening, it's the closest one to the entrance. The elyona, and the upper row, roa esa kora, which sees the roof. Shelafnim heimenu, but underneath the first row, not. The second column not. Vishilamata heimenu, and underneath the first row, so row 2 and column 2, ein tzarich b'dika, they don't need to be checked. So again, we have in rows of 5 and 5, so you have column 1 and 2 according to Reb Yehuda, and according to Reb Yochanan, you have column 1 and row 2 on top. And each one has a supporting brisa. And now the Gemara is going to go to Beis Hillel's opinion. Beis Hillel omrim shtei shuras chitzonos, the two outside ones, shehem elyonos, which are the upper ones. So this needs explanation. Amarav, what does this mean? So Elyona ushilamata himena. So Beis Hillel has a much more lenient opinion. Beis Hillel says we only check 2 rows, or we're going to according to Rav, we only check 2 rows. That means in the first column we check the first 2 rows. So in our case with 5 by 5, you would check in column 1 row 1 and 2 on top. Amar Rav Elyona ushalamati menu. Shmuel Amar Elyona v'shalifnim. Shmuel argues, he says you check the column 1 and column 2, the first row. My time of the Rav. So why does Rav say you check the column 1, row 1 and 2? The Rav dai chitzona, because Rav says the emphasis is on the outside. V'ha'el yonis ketani, but it also says the upper. L'mi'uti tatoi de tatoi. It means to exclude the really low ones. So it means just the upper 2 as opposed to anyone beneath the upper 2. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says Elyona v'shilafnim himenu. It's the upper ones, meaning column 1 and 2, upper row. My time, why does he say what he says? Dayak Elyonos, because he infers from it says Elyonos, it says the upper ones. You see the emphasis on the upper ones. But the Brisa, but the Mishnah also says outside ones. So lemiyuti gevayasa de gevayasa. It's to exclude the inside ones, meaning anything beyond column 1 and 2. Rav Chia Tani Kavasi de Rav. We have a machlokas. How do we? What's the halacha? Rav Chia learned like Rav. V'kulu Tanaik Tanu Kavasi de Shmuel, and everyone else learned like Shmuel. Bilchas Kavasi de Shmuel, and the opinion follows Shmuel. This is our gersa.